I haven't put anything up for a couple of weeks, and you know, uh, I didn't feel all that great. Was one reason. I had kind of an infection going on. Nothing like this stuff we don't want to get, not because we don't want to get sick, but because we don't want the powers that be to get any more of a hold on us than they already have, right? I just had a couple things going on, but also, looking for some inspiration. And, in wrestling, we've got Benoit 1 and 2, Dark Side of the Ring, and I guess Snuka just came out. I'm not too interested in that one for whatever reason. And I caught the Brawl for All, or most of it, which that was actually a time, one of the times when I was not all that aware of what was going on. There was only a couple stints like that in wrestling in my life. I wasn't paying too close of attention to what was going on, and I've just realized that there just wasn't really much inspiration for me. I've realized that, frankly, it's all become so toxic, the culture of it, and like A&E or AEW, excuse me, seems to be operating under the assumption, for one, that fans want wrestling and politics to go hand in hand, and not politics could play into wrestling because wrestling would utilize pop culture and anything happening in the world, including politics, but not for the point of endorsing one political agenda over another. They would just bring those themes into the conflicts in the ring to create interest traditionally. But AEW apparently is convinced that people want politics with their wrestling. So they alienate everyone who has a different political agenda than their own. And that to me is just completely toxic and something that people just don't want any part of. And it completely turns me away. And for another thing, they seem convinced that the only people that are going to tune into wrestling are these really super informed, over informed people who are just so deluded that they're drowning in information about wrestling and the behind the scenes. And, when I was a kid, if a wrestler got paid whatever, it meant nothing to me. And who Ric Flair is today, or Randy Savage, or Hacksaw Duggan, or Bill Mulkey is today versus who they were when I saw them on TV, who they really are, means little or nothing to me. Sure, I'll sit and listen to some podcasts or whatever, like everyone else, but it just means nothing to me. I mean, and what someone gets paid, who's moving from one promotion to another. I would find that out when they show up on a new TV program. And yeah, I know more about what wrestling really is as an adult, but when I tune in, it's for the same reasons I did when I was a kid. And when they would get on the new show, it would be cool because now they're with new people. They're on a different program that has a different look. It's a whole new look to them. And who wants to hear anymore? First, we weren't watching the wrestling of the day because it was getting so bad, and all the young people, they look exactly the same, and you can't hardly differentiate one from another. There's no characters at all, and they don't have the size or anything, and that's just gotten worse, and they've gotten smaller and smaller, and they keep making excuses why that should be okay. And it's like, well, look at Rey Mysterio. That's what everyone always says. Look at Rey Mysterio. You know, uh, um, so then we had the people from the 80s basically sitting around tables and having discussions, giving out insider terms and doing things that make people think that they really have inside knowledge of the business. You know, when you know that those guys, it was just a mixture. If Dusty Rhodes and Jim Ross and Michael Hayes are sitting around a table talking, they're still calling themselves Dusty Rhodes and Michael Hayes and good old JR. And you're getting a mix of Virgil Runnels and Dusty Rhodes. It's just tuned down a little bit less. It's still kayfabe. You know, they're still working you. And we were watching all that stuff and buying all the DVDs from every conceivable guy and every conceivable angle, cage matches, tank teams, biggest feuds, until those were completely exhausted. And then they came out with the network and buying up every territory's libraries and all these specials, and Edge and Christian have a show, and now podcasts and rehashing road stories that you've heard 4 times, 6 times, a dozen times or more. But I want to hear one more guy tell it. I've heard Tony Schiavone tell it, and Ric Flair tell it, and Road Warrior Animal tell it, and Ricky and Robert tell it, and then I've heard it them some of these guys tell it 3 or 4 times, but now I want to hear it one more time from Arn Anderson on a podcast. And Arn's awesome and everything, but it's hard to find any inspiration, man. And I saw, WrestleMania, considering what's happening right now, it's harder to criticize, but The Fiend and whoever, the Firefly Funhouse match. And I understand they can't have fans, so you do it like a movie and stuff. But, him and John Cena, there was no wrestling. There was no, and The Undertaker, he's done elements of things like that in the past, so it was a little more understandable and a little better. But still, it's just two guys messing around outside in the graveyard. And in the end, the guy gets buried and there's a tombstone with his name on it. It's like when Abdullah the Butcher lost a lost a freaking battle royal or something and had to be electrocuted in the middle of the ring. That's believable. Oh yeah, sure, you bet. I can totally buy into that. You know, um, the Fiend thing, considering what's going on, they can't have fans. So okay, do a movie deal. Bobby, come on, come on, don't. Uh, Man, anyway, it just frickin' sucks. It sucks. It sucks anymore. What else can I say, man? It frickin' sucks. It sucks. Stop.